Now, 2020 has been the perfect storm for relationship breakdown. That's according to divorce law specialists. The stresses of lockdown, working from home and homeschooling as well have all led to a recent surge in divorce inquiries. We're joined now by Emma Hatley from Stewart's Law, who's an expert in divorce law. It's all rather sad, isn't it? More people getting divorced. Where's the evidence for this come from?
Jonathan, hi. Certainly at Stewart's, we've had inquiries between July and October, which rose by 122% over the same period in 2019. And I think it's borne out by other surveys, including Citizens Advice Bureau, who've shown that there have been a real surge in interest in relationship breakdown services since the pandemic started. And as you say, it's created the perfect storm for couples whose marriages were already in difficulties when you've got, lockdown, potentially sharing working space, homeschooling, and if you've got any financial worries or health concerns on top of that, then it is going to sadly be the final straw for many relationships.
I'd have assumed that people sort of got divorced throughout the year, but there are certain spikes in the year, aren't there? And January is one of them.
Yes, I mean, historically, September after the school holidays and January after the Christmas holidays, when families spend prolonged periods of time together, are typically, higher interest in inquiries. So, I think some people refer to Divorce Day being the first day that the courts open in January. That trend has continued really throughout the lockdown period.
I know there's new legislation coming in next year as well. I think they're saying it's no-fault divorces, that could also be playing a part. Is that the case, do you think?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, some clients who don't want to have to cite fault against their spouse because, the marriage is broken down for a myriad of reasons, but they don't want to have to blame the other person, are waiting for that new law to come into force. It's expected to come into force towards the end of next year. And that will avoid the blame game and will allow people to divorce with a lot more dignity. So it's really to be welcomed.
And you mentioned some of the reasons why people find relationships so stressful during the pandemic. What are the main points in a normal year that cause people to fall out of love, if you like?
Well, I think there are too many reasons to list, but it's a lot. The time it's when the things that brought you together, the common interest in your lives has gone. Raising a family, for example, relationship breakdown can be caused by stress, abusive relationships. There are so many reasons, but when you're having to be compressed into a very confined, restricted social group, then it really will bring to the fore difficulties in partnerships.
And I hadn't imagined that this would be an issue, but apparently Brexit might even mean more divorces next year. Tell me why.
Well, for international families, particularly European international families, when we come out of the transitional period on the 31st of December at 11 o'clock at night, we will leave a lot of the European regulations which harmonise family law. So it eases enforcement of English orders in relation to children and also in relation to recognition of divorce itself. So for petitions which are started after we've left the transitional period, we will be in a whole new legal environment. And there's great uncertainty about that because we haven't yet finalised the position on family law in the Brexit negotiations. I think it's a particular concern for people who are going to be seeking to enforce orders overseas. And if they get their petitions issued before the end of the transitional period, they'll fall into the old rules.
Emma, it's all very sad, but if people do decide to go separate ways, you want it to be as smooth as possible, I guess, especially if children are involved. What's your advice to couples who've made this decision during the pandemic?
I think the advice when you've got children is always to try and put the children first and make your decisions very child-centred. You've got to continue being parents, even if you're no longer going to continue being partners. So for those families who've got children, I would say it's about putting the children first. For those families that haven't got children, I think just transparency and trying to be as sort of reasonable as possible in the negotiations. Everybody has legal entitlements, and it's important that they're recognised at the outset.
And finally, when it comes to extramarital affairs, a bit trickier, isn't it, during a lockdown?
Yes, I think anecdotally more petitions are being based on unreasonable behaviour than adultery at the moment.
Yeah, OK. Emma Hatley from Stewart's Law, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.